So my name's Nick Sharp. I'm a trustee here at Stretham Old Engine. So Stretham Old Engine is now run as a charity, and there's a group of about a dozen of us that help to keep the place open. So there's some volunteers that do what I do, which is organise visits and take people around, and then we've got some volunteers that actually look after the building, doing the painting and whatever work needs to be done. And we try and open twice a month between April and October to show people around. And we also do private visits, so people who maybe can't make one of the open days but want a group of people, that we can take those around, by arrangement. So it's kind of how it works. So we like to think we're quite accessible to people coming to visit. Okay.
Excellent.
So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the scoop wheel, so we can wander down.
Okay.
So this is the scoop wheel. So this is what lifts the water from down at the farm level into the rivers. So just as a little bit of background, for hundreds of years they've been trying to drain the Fens, and they started off by straightening the rivers so the water could get out to the sea more efficiently, and that had effect of keeping the land dry. But as soon as you start draining the Fens, it shrinks because it's dry, and also it's peat, so it's organic matter, and it just tends to oxidise. So what they had is a position where the ground, the farm ground, as at one level was below the level of the rivers. So as soon as you get any rain, it would just act like a sump, fill up with water, and then obviously no good for farming anymore. So they realised the only way around this was to lift the water from down at the farm level into the rivers, and that's what this scoop wheel achieves. So behind us we've got where the water comes in from the farm. So there's a network of what they call drains that would bring the water to this point, and then the scoop wheel would lift the water over what they call a rising breast. It's not here anymore, but it was a piece of wood they could raise and lower to stop the river flowing back. So this would lift the water from down at the farm level into the river, and then obviously the river would take care of taking the water away. This scoop wheel would run at 4 revs a minute and lift about 30 tonnes per revolution, which gives you the 120 tonnes a minute of water. So these are the boilers that would produce the steam for the engine next door. And originally there were 2, but they put an extra one in. So in 1830, when this place was built, they had two boilers, but they were an older design. Essentially, they were what they call wagon boilers. So the coal would be burnt underneath the boiler, and the boiler was just essentially just like a kettle, In about 1870, these two new boilers were installed, and these are a lot more efficient because what you've got is two tubes that run the length of the boiler, and there's a fire in each one of these tubes, and then the water is all around these 2 tubes. So you extract as much heat out of the coal as
did you have to have that running all the time?
So the engine would run on average 30 days a year. That's, if you look at the records, but when it was running, it would obviously be running continuously. So it would take about a day to get the boilers up to temperature. And obviously, having spent a day to get them up to temperature, you wouldn't want to just run them for an hour or 2. You'd run them for a few days at least. Oh, right. And then you'd get your drain, your levels back under control, and then it'd all be, you know, the boilers would just be run down.
So would somebody be checking the weather forecast? So you didn't
well, I don't think it was more river levels and, you know, yeah. So most of the drainage happened. So yeah, it's the level of the water in the drains, the level of the water in the rivers. So and reacting to that. Yeah. But yeah, once they were running, obviously it was a 24/7 in that week or however long they were running them for. These things would need to be constantly, you know, stoked with coal. Normally there's one stoker, so the stoker's a guy that feeds these things with coal, and then one superintendent. So that was two people. But I mean, there would have been periods when maybe they got a little bit of extra help. So maybe when they got a delivery of coal, they might get a few or certain type of maintenance going on. But yeah, I think normally it was two people. Yeah. So this red is us. Red dot is us. Yeah. So that's Stretham. This river here is the Ouse that flows up to King's Lynn, and then these are the two drainage channels that the old Bedford and New Bedford. Oh. So these were hand dug in the 1630s or whenever. Okay. They dug one and then realised, it'd be nice to have another one. So they did that quite soon after. But essentially what that means is that there's not so much water running down this part of the Ouse anymore, because most of it can come down these channels.
So at that time, was this all flooded then? Really?
Yeah, so there's a combination of some of it would have been permanently underwater, some of it would have been permanently dry, others would have been a bit between the two. So yeah. So obviously the villages, like the old villages, they would be tended. People obviously knew what they were doing, and there's outcrops of clay that they could build the houses on, and they would be dry. So you've got the Isle of Ely that's quite well known, which does extend down to Streatham. So that was permanently dry. But as soon as you get off that Isle of Ely, then yeah, you're in this world of sort of sometimes, that's right, exactly. Oh. Yeah. And the important thing to know is that, you know, if all the pumping you've seen is still happening today, and you know, if it didn't happen, it would revert back to how it was. Yeah. So it's only dry here because it's still being drained. There's still electric pumps that are pumping the water into the rivers, just for exactly the same reason as they were 200 years ago. The grey pipe at the back there, so that's the steam. So that the steam from the boilers goes along this grey pipe, and then it goes up into the next room. So that's where I'll point it out when we go to the next, where the engine is, where the steam comes from. So. Okay.
Go on the trap door.
It's safe, don't worry. I would have been down there a lot actually otherwise. Right, so what you're looking at now is the engine that drives the scoop wheel. So powered by the steam. So you've seen the steam coming from the boiler. That grey pipe is the steam pipe. The crankshaft of this drives the scoop wheel that you've seen. This is called a rotative beam engine. So the beam is above our heads, it's big cast iron structure, and then it's rotative because you've got this rotating crankshaft. So the very early steam engines, they had no rotating parts. All they did is had rods that they would lift up and down, and they were typically used, you know, in the mines for lifting water out of the mines. But for this application where you're lifting large volumes of water, you need a scoop wheel, and so you need your crankshaft. And so that was one of the innovations that had to happen to the steam engine before it was useful for doing the drainage.
And the measuring stick.
So that's actually the rising breast. So I told you they would vary the rising breast according to the level of the river. Yeah. So you don't want to lift the water higher than you need to, but you need to keep it above the level of the river to stop it going back. So that black hand wheel there is what you would use to change the height of the rising breast, and then it would update the little pointer, move the pointer up and down. So you had an indication of how high the rising breast was. So this is what I was talking about. They kept a record of how many hours it would run, and you can see it kind of varies quite a lot. You've got, oh my God, those over 1,000 hours there, and another year it might be 200 or 300. So, but I did average out, and it worked out about 30 days a year. So they'd be just running it for short periods, and then maybe not again for another month or two during the winter. So this is the cylinder that supplied the steam from here, and that's what you've got a piston inside going up and down. So the way this works is that the steam is very low pressure, so it's what they call an atmospheric engine. So the steam is drawn into the cylinder, and then cold water is sprayed onto that steam, and that creates a vacuum that pulls the piston down. So this is, early steam technology. So if you look at a locomotive, a steam locomotive, they'd use much higher pressure steam, but I think this was 4 pounds per square inch, so very low pressure. And my assistant is going to start the engine. So we've got an electric motor that turns over it runs on the outside of the flywheel.
So the wheel can't go round out there?
It is going round, yeah, so it's permanently engaged. There's no way of disengaging the scoot wheel. So when the flywheel is turned...
It's good that it does actually have an outing every now and then.
Gosh, there's mistakes in maintaining.
So this is running at one rev per minute. 1 rev per minute. But when it was under steam, it was about 15. So much faster.
Yeah.
All right, we can go up to the next level. So this is the drain where the water would have come into the engine. Yeah. It's all a bit blocked up now because it's not used anymore. But yeah.
That would have probably been quite high then, I guess.
No, it would have been similar level to now. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow.
And then you can see through this other window the river level, the river. So it's very hard to gauge the relative levels of the drain versus the river, but so the problem you got here is that the piston rod wants to go up and down needs to go up and down in a straight line, but the beam is moving in an arc, and so you've got this linkage that kind of keeps the rod moving up and down in a straight line, but still enables the power to be transmitted into the beam. And it's another one of Watt's innovations of the steam engine that made it suitable for this application. One of the superintendents he was, this is back in the, I think you can almost back to the Second World War. He was always very keen to keep the steam engine, because what happened in a lot of places that they didn't have room to install a diesel engine as well as the steam engine, so they just ripped the steam engine out, and then that obviously would be lost. Whereas we were lucky because we had a bit of space where they could build a separate house for the diesel, and kept the steam engine as in theory as a backup system. There's lots. People like that kind of had an interest in this technology and wanted to see it preserved. Yeah. Yes, I think. There you go. So all these blue dots are steam pumping stations. So you can see, so that's presumably us here. Yeah. So there would, even within a mile or two radius, there would have been quite a few steam. Yeah.
So a lot of those have just gone.
Most of them are gone, yeah. Well, pretty well all of them, I think. Yeah. So if you go back to the building, you can see how thick the walls are up here. Yeah. And it's because the building is supporting the engine, so it's like the chassis, if you like, for the engine. And even these timbers, they're quite substantial. So we've got a winch down the bottom there, so they could use that to bring the beam into position. So.
Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I didn't expect it to be moving at all today.
No. Well, that's the beauty of the electric motor. It's just a press of a switch, isn't it? Whereas if you've got steam, it's a whole another level of organisation required to do that. So it's not quite the same as steam, but at least it gives you a sense of it moving. Yeah.
Is that an oil catcher?
Yeah, that's an oil. That's right. A few bits and pieces which accumulated. Yeah. So I think the thing to realise, it would have been a lot of work to maintain all the rivers and all the drains, and it was all done by hand and horses. Yeah. So it would have been a small army of workers really maintaining
it all.
And
I bet you had to all contact each other with regard to your rivers.
There would have been some coordination between the superintendents of all the engine. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was a massive undertaking. Yeah. So nowadays, you've got these little pumping stations dotted around, but they're all remotely controlled from Denver. So there's like a central place where they can coordinate it essentially. So it's a simpler problem now because the people doing the control are sat in one place. So this is where they would store the coal. So as we've said, it came down on the barge through that grey door. There's a weigh scale there, so they could weigh the coal coming in. I think they had a bit of a problem with the coal disappearing between when they ordered it and when it come in. So they would weigh it all as it in, and you can see the big walls around this area as well to stop keep the coal, because they would only take 1 or 2 deliveries a year, and it would all be stacked up on this area.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then and it would come in generally 2-foot square cubes, so to give you an idea of how big they were, and then they'd take them into the boiler house and smash them up.
Oh, wow, so they came in like that?
Yeah, it was kind of, I think it's because it's hand mined at that point, all the coal, and it was easier for it to be transported in big blocks rather than, because obviously there was no conveyor systems or anything like that, or digger buckets.
Right.
It was all manually handled, so it just made sense to keep it in big chunks like that.
You can imagine, they wanted to protect what they bought.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was probably all a bit too much of a temptation for.
Especially during the winter months.
Yeah. So I think the superintendent and the stoker, they had free access to the coal, but it wasn't meant to no one else, but in theory. Okay. So this is our landmark.
Yeah.
So 75-foot
Wow.
chimney. So I think we're the only chimney that's still intact. So all the others have been taken down.
Yeah.
So a lot were taken down during the Second World War because it was thought they might be used for navigation.
Oh, I see, of course.
And so by this point we were running on diesel, so we weren't using the steam engine, but the steam engine was still there as a backup if there were any problems with the diesel. And I think the reasoning was that we might lose access to oil because all our oil had to be imported at that point, but we'd always have coal. So
Right.
that's kind of the arguments they used to justify keeping the chimney.
Wow.
That's amazing, isn't it, really? That it still all survived.
Yeah.
It's good.
Right, so we can go for the next bit. So this is all a little bit out of context, but we kind of get gifted engines as other museums close. But that engine at the back is a small steam engine, and similar engines would have been used for doing the drainage, small scale drainage. This one actually came from a brewing company because it was used in the brewing process. And we call it the Guinness engine because it was gifted to us by the Guinness brewing company. But there is some relevance to drainage.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then there's things like these small diesel engines that they would have been all over the place. Didn't have, they were equivalent of the electric motor. So if you wanted some pumping or whatever, then threshing of your corn, then you'd have one of those. So this is the drain I pointed to.
Oh.
And that arch there is the back of the scoop wheel. So you can probably just about see the scoop wheel rotating.
You can see a scoop through the little.
Yeah. If you look through the arch, then you can see the back of the scoop wheel. You see it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the diesel engine that took over from the steam engine. So this 1920, this was installed.
And when did this stop being?
It didn't. I think it's sort of 50s. That kind of. It was relatively short run, and then the electric motor took over, but not from here.
Wow.
So this behind it, this is a centrifugal pump. So this would have, instead of having a scoop wheel, you'd have a centrifugal pump. And this was, again, it was the technology of the time. It was more efficient than the scoop wheel. And this is essentially the same kind of pump you might find in your washing machine or your motor car.
Right.
So, yeah.
Gosh, this must have seemed so simple at the time compared to all.
Well, it was more complex technology, but it could be obviously run with a lot less manpower. So this was roughly twice as powerful as the steam engine, right. So it could do the job much more quickly.
Stop.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Gosh, everything's kept really well.
Yeah, I think it's mainly just look after the building and it's keep it dry, and then it kind of looks after itself, really. Occasionally get volunteers.
More lubrication.
Yeah, so there's it's essentially total loss. So you've got these injecting oil into the bearings, and then it all collects down the bottom in the sump. Right. And every now and again they could pump it and presumably filter it and reuse it, but it wasn't like a recirculating system as you'd have in a modern engine.
It costs a few bob to change the gasket on this one.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the gasket is, but I'm sure it's vital.
Just the stuff.
Yeah.
Two bits of metal, so you have in the engine usually have a gasket.
Look at the sound of this.
Yes, yeah.
So it's what they call a blast injection. So you've got these two cylinders that would be filled with air up to 1,000 psi, so quite high pressure. And then they would be used as an air start for the engine and also to atomise the diesel. So nowadays you have a diesel pump that will do that job for you. At this point they just use the pressure of the air from these cylinders to break the fuel up into small droplets that would then combust. But it makes for a challenge to get this thing running, because potentially it could run, because there's lots of safety considerations because of the high pressures involved. Because if one of these went off, it'd be like a rocket basically. It would blow the place apart. So, yeah.
Have you seen it up and running?
Well, not this one, no. But there's one in Prickwillow, and they do run those. I think they've got 3 or 4. They've not got the steam engines anymore, but they have got 3 or 4 of these, I think. And one of them they do run, or at least they used to run it. They had the people there to run it. So.
This is like the work.
Yeah. So obviously in the day they wouldn't have been able to get their spares very easy. So it was often got to repair what they had. So there would have been a blacksmith's forge and an anvil and some basic tools here just to keep the place going. I think these became quite useful resource for the rest of the community as well, for the farmers and etc. who wanted a bit of work doing on their ploughs. They could come here and get some things fixed. So.
That's good. Wow, this has seen some work.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite original. Some of the yeah. This side's a bit more modern. I don't think this is kind of more later. But I think the idea was you'd have a line shaft that was driven by that engine at the back there, and then it would drive these individual machines. Don't quite know any more about the history of it, but. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Really good, thank you. Better than I thought it would be. So I'm glad we came in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
A nice piece of slate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have a new roof put on the on the workshop quite recently. So that was just a summer because it was leaking quite badly. So.
And was that part of it?
Right, so this is what they call a stoker's cottage. So the guy that used to keep the boilers running
He
lived there.
Oh.
And then the superintendent lived in the house this one, so slightly, so you know, it gives you an idea of their relative status. yeah.
And I must admit, I like the look of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing with this, I said they built the diesel house after. You can see that at the back is the diesel house.
Oh yes.
So it would have been not so good for the stoker.
No.
Because they're right in their back garden, basically.
Gone.
Yeah, all your view's gone, yeah. But then they probably would have been on the verge of leaving anyway at that point, because obviously by the time the diesel come, they didn't need a stoker. So. Yeah.